Congratulations on making it to level 2. You're almost there. There's a couple more new things and then you'll be on your way to that summative. So we are going to talk about real world proportional relationships. So it's really not a lot different than what we've done. It's just instead of seeing a table or a graph, we're going to see a real world problem, and then we're going to put it on a graph that is totally blank. So we're going to have to do a little more than we have before. Anywho, let's move forward. So it costs $14 for 2 books, $21 for 3 books, and $35 for 5 books. At the bookstore. So just like we've done before, we're going to figure out our dependent and independent variables first, write our equation, then we'll move on to the graph. So this isn't the new part. So if you want to challenge yourself and pause and see if you can do it on your own, feel free. If you're still a little shaky on these, then go ahead and do it with us in the video. But if you want to pause and check here in a second, feel free to do that. Your choice. Okay? So since we have $14 for the books, right, you aren't going to have to pay unless you buy the books. So that means the money depends on the books. So the dependent is the cost, or you can say dollars, you can even say money, any of those choices. And the independent variable are the books, right? Those need to happen, the number of books. We don't know the cost unless we know the number of books. Okay? And when I look at the comparison here to figure out my equation, I see that if I take the books times 7, it gives us our dollar amount, right? 2 times 7 gives us 14, 3 times 7 gives us 21, 5 times 7 gives us 35. So that means that, remember, y equals, and then something happening to x, because x is our independent variable, which is books. So if we take y equals 7x, right, our number of books times 7 equals our cost, which is y. Okay, so now keep those in mind, but I'm going on to the next slide, which is the next part in your packet. Okay, so now that we know our independent, our dependent, we have our equation, we have even our points that we can make from the word problem, we're going to go ahead and make a graph based off of this. And it says be sure to label your axes, right? So we got to label what the x and y axis are. So very important, right? We know that our independent variable, so if you're going back here, our independent variable is always x, so that means number of books needs to be on the x-axis. Dependent variable is always y, so that means cost needs to be on the y-axis. So we're going to go ahead and label those. You do that too. Okay, so I have number of books on the x-axis. I have, one sec, it's hiding from me. Where'd it go? There we go. Cost on the y-axis. Okay, so go ahead and label those. You definitely have to do that because otherwise we don't know what you're talking about. And it does depend on where you put them, right? X is always independent, Y is always dependent. So make sure you put them in the correct spot. Okay, the next very important thing we need to do is label our scale so that we know what we're counting by, because we're not necessarily counting by the same thing. So number of books, if we look back at our example, they were just going like 2, 3, then 5. Well, we don't want to label it all randomly. We want to go, count by the same number. Well, those are all fairly close, so I think we should just count by ones. So go ahead and label your x-axis by 1. So go ahead and do that. If you need to pause, feel free, but I'm going to keep going. Okay. So then the cost, I don't want to label by ones, right? Because the cost was going up by $7 for every book you bought. So that means I want to go up by 7s for my y-axis here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Count by 7s. Okay? So I'll give you a second to do that. But if you need to pause, feel free. The other thing I want to label is our origin here. And so I'm just going to put 1, 0 because it's 0 for both the x and y-axis. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video if you need to finish labeling. But otherwise I'm going to move on. So I'm just going to take the points from, or the information from our real world problem to create our points. So the first one they told us was $14 for 2 books. So I'm going to start with my x-axis first, right? Even though the $14 came first in the problem, I want to start with my x-axis, which was books. So I'm going to go over to the 2 and go up to 14 and put my first point there. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. The next one was 321. And then it actually skipped up to 535. And if I look, just like they should be, right, with our proportional relationships, they should always create that straight diagonal line. And for this one, we actually cannot draw a line through because you can't buy part of a book. Well, yes, you could pay part of $1. They're not going to sell you part of a book, so we're just going to leave it as is. Now, if you wanted to also include a point at 0, 0, like 0 books bought cost you $0, you can, but I just included these 3 because they were in the problem. Okay, so that's really it. If you need to go back and look at something, feel free to rewind the video, but otherwise go get your quick check and prove your knowledge on this. Good luck!